6:10, 6:02, I think it is. Right.
All right, so I'll kind of kick things off. As I was just mentioning a moment ago, I sent around several revisions to the capital budget today, some to the highway department capital budget requests. One of the items wasn't in the packet, and then I made a mistake on the streetlight conversion, so that wasn't included in the packet. So as we're going through this tonight, you'll see the revised versions. I've got hard copies of those if anybody would like to pick those up. Additionally, I received this school department capital budget back up earlier today. So I do have hard copies of those if people want to come back to town hall and pick those up. I tried sending over the complete capital budget packet. It was a little too big for what our size limits are for attachments. So I put it into a Dropbox. If anybody's having some difficulty downloading it from the Dropbox, just let me know. So like I said, we got a packed agenda tonight. Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you, I'll turn it over to Rick Mattson, Director of Public Works. Probably kick things off and then go through each of the division requests.
Okay. Go to it, Mr. Mattson.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, members of the committee. Tonight, we have with us Highway Superintendent Drew Hand, Town Engineer Carl Baldoff, Water Superintendent Scott Gustafson, Parks and Cemeteries and Forestry Superintendent Justin Monta, and Superintendent of Vehicle Maintenance on that 7300 number, Tom Perchicani. If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I'll give you a quick overview of each division, and then as we get into the questions and answers, I'll defer to the respective department heads to give you the specifics on the actual requests. I believe we're going to start with engineering. As you'll see in this engineering request, this capital request for this particular year, we're beginning to put a lot of emphasis on drainage, culverts, bridges, and dams. These are infrastructure improvements that have been forgotten about for many years. A lot of these structures are very old and in need of repair. We have approximately 300 stream road crossings in the town of Walpole that convey water from drainage systems to respective water bodies. Again, those have, I don't want to say been neglected, but they haven't received the attention that they should have received over the years. There's also a traffic control signal for Washington and Polly Lane in the engineering budget. You see that's another long overdue and welcomed improvement, in my opinion. Anybody that drives up and down Washington Street or has gone by there knows that there have been many, many accidents there over the course of the years. This will at least, I don't want to say eliminate accidents, but it'll certainly aid in the reduction of accidents. So if you want to start with the first one, again, that's the traffic signal. The request for this particular improvement is $650,000. This is a pretty firm estimate that Carl received from McMahon Associates. One other thing, this traffic signal is currently under design with McMahon Associates. So this particular funding that we're seeking now is for the construction portion of that project. I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if you want to go through all of the requests or if you just want to go one at a time with them.
Yeah, no, just one at a time. I think it'd be easier. And if we went right down the line, that's the way it's all set up in our book. So it'll be a little easier to follow. So
yeah, Rick, if it's okay with you, I'll share my screen. So I don't know if you want me to focus on the engineering department overview.
Yes, if you could, please.
I'm going to do that. All right. You should be able to see this. I think engineering. Here we go. You all see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Hey, Rick, curious, the traffic construction for Washington and Polly. I mean, it's kind of tight there. There are residential properties on all four corners. Does that, just curious what the project entails. Does it encroach upon private property?
I'll let Carl speak to that, but there will be some reconfiguration of
members.
the designer, Rick's correct, they're trying to align, actually Poly Lane and Short Street a little bit better. But other than temporary, in other words, grading onto private property or matching a walk or a driveway, there are no land takings anticipated down there right now. So the designer has tried to get this in within the right of way that we have. Some of the road shifting is going to help accommodate that. We're tight on some corners, not so tight on others, but they try to work this through. We're not anticipating any takings or permanent acquisition.
Thank you.
So, and Rick, just to reiterate, you said this is all for the construction, because I think it was 2 years ago, town meeting approved the design, the study and the design for this, so, and you said that's almost complete now? Okay.
Carl, you can answer as to where they actually are at the design. I know they're well into it. I don't know exactly what, at what point they are.
Yeah, they are well into it. I'm not going to give a percentage, but I'd say they're probably at 75% now. I haven't seen a specification on it yet, but we've got pretty well designed plan package for it right now.
And this 650 will cover everything, right? We wouldn't have to do any other in-town work?
That's hopefully true, Mr. Forsberg, Mr. Chair, that we're anticipating that to cover everything, including contingencies. I caution now this environment of escalating costs. I'm not sure there are any certainties, but it seems like it has the estimates held, and there's a decent, we've got a pretty good estimate now based on pretty final plans.
Okay, great. Any other questions on the traffic signals at Washington, Short and Poly?
Just a quick question. I assume that the residents that will be impacted by this in that area, have been notified and are aware?
That's a good question, and we have not had any kind of a hearing on that. We've had a number of calls at the office inquiring about it, but we haven't had any official outreach for that project yet.
But it's planned. There'll be some type of reach out or informational before we start digging up the road that the residents will be notified as to what's going on?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And well set, Rick. I think we can go on to the Allen Dam.
Yep, the Allen Dam, this particular request is for the permitting and peer review of the design that is currently being performed by the National Resources Conservation Service. They're designing upgrades and improvements to the Allen Dam structure. Again, as I stated earlier, there's a lot of emphasis on dams and water control structures and drainage now. This project's been in the works for quite some time. Currently under review, as I said, the town is responsible for the funding of the permitting portion of the project. And there's a minimal amount of money in there for a peer review of the design that's currently undertaking. Now, keeping in mind that once this is designed and the actual construction of the proposed dam improvements take place, the town will have to appropriate a portion of funds for that. You'll see that in Carl's 5-year plan, the second year, I believe it's next year. It's actually an improvement request of $1.5 million. That would be the town's portion. That is a 65-35 split, Carl, I believe.
That's correct, Rick.
So 65-35 split, 35% split portion of the town's is $1.5 million of the projected construction cost.
Would you repeat that amount, please, Rick?
$1.5 million.
Thank you.
Now, what would this entail, just briefly, is it the banking or is it the outflow structure or what? It seems to me that years ago when the dam was built, that they wanted trees and plantings on the bankings to, keep all of the soil together. And now the trees aren't a good idea because if they fall down, they're gonna take earth with it and then weaken the dam. So,
I believe the focus is on the overflow spillway and the underdrain system. And again, Kyle can give you many more details than I can on that.
Yeah, that's correct. I agree with Rick. There is focus, and the actual embankment is going to be elevated by about 9 inches. There is going to be some work on the inlet control structure, and but the majority, I'd say, of the cost is actually on the overflow spillway. So that's a good synopsis. The basic concept up there, the basic dam is not going to change. The underdrains are particularly important because they keep the water out of the dam, and that helps it function, especially in the long term. So that's the type of improvements we're looking at. But I think from the average, there will be a noticeable difference in the emergency spillway, but the dam will appear similar when it's done.
thank you. Any other questions? Okay. I think we're good. Onto the drainage and roadway article.
This next request is for the rehabilitation and/or replacement of the drainage system, storm drainage system on June Street. This area is a relatively high groundwater area. The existing drainage system, for reasons that we can't quite understand yet, is not functioning properly. Whether the piping is undersized, whether the piping is damaged somewhere, anybody that's driven by there in the winter months could see that there's constantly groundwater perking out of that ground. Some pumps are also discharging, indicating the high groundwater elevation, and it quite honestly, it causes a public safety icing condition. You'll see as you get to the water capital improvements that the water department has requested funding to replace the water main on June Street. This project would be rolled into that project, be performed by the same contractor. It's just a separate funding source. Whereas the water main will be funded by water, this is funded through free cash.
Any questions there? All right, next, bridge study.
Yeah, this request is for funding to inspect the town-owned bridges. I'm not sure exactly how many we have. I believe it's like 15, Kyle, maybe that cross, the vast majority of them cross over the Ponset River. Some are classified as bridges, others are classified as culverts. And this particular request is to have those bridges inspected, get a condition report, and ultimately move forward with whatever repairs are necessary. A couple of these have already been shown to be deficient. We want to look at them again and see exactly how far the condition has deteriorated.
Do you know when the last time this was done?
The actual bridge
Yeah,
inspection?
just the inspection of the bridges.
Yeah, Kyle, I think Kyle has that answer.
So the bridges are inspected. They're actually inspected by the state. I guess I'm going to say for the most part, because I get reports on some of them and not on others. But as far as I know, we've never done a collective. It's an ability to analyze the bridges that we have, try and prioritize them in a condition, and said take some of the inspection reports, take a look. For instance, some of them will need, maybe only need minor masonry repairs and maybe some improvements to guardrails, where others are gonna need much more extensive repairs or replacements. It's a handle, it's gonna be a template to go forward with this, to get this organized into one plan. So, you know, we range from the Stone Arch Bridge that goes over the Neponset River on Washington Street in East Walpole. A little ways south on Washington Street, there was a bridge where the old railroad went underneath. That was redone about 20 years ago. And we've got everything in between. Some of these bridges have been around since the 30s, 50s. They're different forms of construction. We want to get a handle on this and lay out a template for what we need to do. So in short, it really has never been.
So it ended up being a master plan, almost something like our roadways and a roadway master plan that prioritize repairs.
Correct. That's where I'm heading with these. I'd like to do it with the dams and the bridges, and even the culverts. The culverts are more extensive. Rick already mentioned that there's quite a number of culverts, but we're trying to get a prioritization plan, and so we know where to go with this.
Okay, any questions? Okay, next, Rick, do the drainage study.
This request is to study a portion of the town's storm drainage system. This is independent of the MS4 stormwater management program that we currently have. That's a totally separate project. This is for the local drains that flood periodically during moderate to heavy rain events. Areas that we've identified are McDonald Circle, Common in Washington, School Street in front of the town hall, the Elm Street Bridge, and there's one other area, and we actually have many areas. This will be a phased approach. That $125,000, if appropriated, we'll use that we'll reprioritize the areas and go as far as we can with it. Not totally convinced that the $125,000 is going to get us where we want to be or need to be. So in future years, we'll probably be seeking more funding for this particular type of study. But we haven't had the opportunity to really sit down with a consultant and find out what the upset number would be to do this type of study. But I'm sure that it's far more than the 125. But this will at least get us going. Again, drains, culverts, bridges, and dams. I keep keep beating the dead horse, but they need attention, and that the time to do that is now.
Yeah, I agree. Is the piece of road, the drain under the I'm not saying this right, on West Street, right by the train station, under the bridge, that floods all the time. Is that in the mix here?
That will be investigated. Yes, that is in the mix. Again, we'll reprioritize and
Yep.
based on, after we speak with the consultant, we'll determine how far the 125 will take us and then prioritize these areas from there. But
Got it.
because those heavily impact traffic, we'll look at those probably first.
Okay, great. Yep, just wanted to make sure that was on the list somewhere, because definitely fits the criteria.
I'll say everybody. Bridge rehabilitation. Rick?
Right, this is a bridge that's known to be in poor condition. This is the bridge on Elm Street at right near the new apartments as it goes over the Neponset River. This particular request is for the design, permitting, and preparation of bid documents to address the deficiencies in that particular bridge.
So are there two of them right there, Rick? Isn't there one like on East Street and Elm Street? As that comes up, there's two culverts that are like bridges there, isn't there?
Yeah, yes, Carl, I believe, which one is this, Carl?
This is
The
for
left-hand
Elm,
side.
this is for the Elm Street
Elm.
culvert. The chair is correct. There's another one nearly identical on East Street. But
Okay.
this one had been selected actually for design before I came back on board here. So I'm kind of following through on that prioritization. You may wonder why we're looking for this while we're still trying to prioritize the rest of the bridges. You can separate bridges into a couple of categories, but those that are in the 10 to 20 foot span range are eligible for the state small bridge grant program. And that's a pretty high value grant. You can get up to $500,000. So you're ahead of the game if you've got your design. Right now, that program has been in effect, but I believe it's stayed for the time being. But it's also believed that it'll keep going. There'll be further additional funding for it. So to get this design squared away will put us in a better position to possibly be able to apply for those funds. And as I say, that's a pretty good grant, and there's not a lot of strings attached to it. So that's why we put this in here. It's an expensive design. Bridges are difficult. There's a lot of analysis that goes in there. There's all kinds of different. There's a Chapter 85 review with DOT, even though we own the bridge. So you may wonder, so that's a pretty pricey design for a bridge, but bridges are not the easiest thing to do. But we're trying to position ourselves so we can make this available if that grant money is available.
Could I just ask a question about kind of about a couple of things here? Is there anything in this bipartisan infrastructure bill that supposedly may be coming through the Senate this fall? I know that there's like $20 billion in there that's set aside for bridges. I don't know. Is there like anything? Does anyone have a sense of if like we delayed some projects, we could get more grants through that? I don't know if that's getting too far ahead, or just wondered if anyone had any had read through that bill yet.
Yeah, I can
So
kind of
I'm-
take, oh, go ahead, Carl.
Go ahead. I'm going to take a quick stab at this and said I haven't read through the bill, and I really can't comment on that. But in general, I think we'd be in better shape if we're shovel ready for the project, that to take advantage of the funding, whether it be through the small bridge program or through federal funds.
Right. So like the idea would be we'd have the plans in place kind of to make it more competitive to get that kind of funding, or how does that work?
That's really my thought process anyway. Yes.
Yeah, my take on that is there isn't anything that we can necessarily take to the bank quite yet. And what I know about Public Works is there's always something to do. And if you look at actually the screen in front of you, we've got, a list of projects the next few years that are multi-million dollars deep. So, where there isn't necessarily any legislation that's been signed yet by the president, I would imagine it would have to work its way through the states, or however it's going to be allocated to the cities and towns. I'd imagine it's going to be quite a process. So I expect that Rick, Carl, me, and the town administrator, Jim, we'll keep an eye on that when that money becomes available. I know we've got plenty of projects that need funding. So I'm sure we'll put it to good use when it becomes available.
Yeah, right. Great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
Carl.
I would agree with Carl that if you're shovel ready, if you've got a design already ready to go, you got a better chance of tapping into that money if it becomes available.
Yeah, and oftentimes aren't these grants, they're like you have to use the money within a certain amount of time. And if you're not shovel ready, you may not even have the plan until the end of when you're supposed to use the money.
I would agree with that. So I think we're better off spending the money up front to get the design ready, and then we're ready to go, whichever program makes the funding eligible.
So Carl, we wouldn't have to worry about, these plans expiring, right? Do they have an expiration date, or once they're approved, they're okay and they're good for, as long as we need to? Because what if we don't get the money next year? We have to wait 5 years. Would the design still be good then?
Well, you can never really truly predict the future. If there would be permits, environmental permits through Conservation Commission, we'd have to keep an eye on them and keep them current. There may also be some federal permits, 401 and Army Corps in there. I'm not exactly sure of that, but that's something we could keep an eye on, and I think you can maintain those permits. If the standard changes in between, then you're going to have to adhere to it. But I think we're better off having a design ready to go. I don't think it's going to. I think they'll age okay if there is some delay.
Do you have like a cost estimate, or just a guesstimate what it might cost of construction?
I think I put I put it up on year 3 on the capital plan at about $1,400,000 construction cost.
Okay, 24, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Now, keep in mind, when I put that on there, and I think I noted that if we get the small bridge grant, then you can take 500,000 off of that. So it's still a fairly hefty capital request, but that's a very major route. There's a lot of truck traffic that goes over that. It's not a numbered route. It's not Route 27, but it's very heavily traveled, and it's pretty essential, I think, to some of the local businesses here.
Carl, it appears that you have used a percentage in regards to inflation with this. And I am rationalizing that you did that also with the 5-year range.
That's a great point. The estimate for design was updated for inflation, and I have the actual estimate for that bridge construction for that Elm Street Bridge. I think was more like $1.3 million, and I boosted it up. And I mentioned this before, but you really don't know what's going to happen with costs as there's a big push on for public works projects. So yes, we've tried to account for it. Anytime you get more than a year or two out on these capital plans, it gets to be pretty difficult to estimate anyway.
Thank you.
All set? Okay, Carl, I think you're done as far as engineering goes, right?
Yep, that's not a bad thing.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you all.
All right, Rick, I guess next up would be highway and road.
Yes, Highway Department. Highway Department has 9 requests for this year. A lot of them, again, are associated with roadway repairs, the typical roadway maintenance, and there's a new one in there, the streetlight conversion. The number 1 priority is $750,000. That's to resurface roadways, various roadways. These roads are rated and re-rated every single year by the engineering and highway departments. We work collectively in the late fall and early winter months to put a plan together for the following year's paving project. So we don't have any particular streets etched in stone yet. That request is for $750,000. The next request is for the resurfacing of sidewalks. Sidewalks, like culverts and bridges, have long been neglected. We have, I don't know exactly how many miles of sidewalk we have in this town, but you can see, just if you drive around the town and pick any random street, you can see that a lot of them are in disrepair. We've tried to get creative in how we not resurface, but how we reconstruct our sidewalks. Oftentimes, we meet with resistance from the residents, and it doesn't always work out the way we had hoped. What we plan to do is to seek funding each and every year for this particular improvement and get a good sidewalk improvement and or extension program in place. In terms of extension, that would be secondary to the repair of the current sidewalks. These would all primarily be asphalt sidewalks with some concrete mixed in. Move on to the next one, Patrick.
So Rick, just on that, so is there a budget for, do we ever look at, where we might want to put a new sidewalk? Is that included in here, or is this just for repairs?
Again, Scott, a new sidewalk would be a sidewalk extension. So this here is geared right now towards just repairing and resurfacing what we currently have in place.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, there are a lot of sidewalks coming up. We have a lot of 30, 35-year-old plus subdivisions that were built in the 80s that are starting to come due. And if you start to look at those sidewalks, they're starting to fall apart. We have some sidewalks in town that are 60 years old that have never been resurfaced, and it's time.
Hate spending money on concrete sidewalks, but at least they last. The hot top ones, it's like walking on I don't know, roller coaster, really. The humps of the frost that pushes it up or whatever, but it's everybody walks in the streets, nobody uses the sidewalk.
Well, if you want to bump that to 3.5 million, we'll put concrete everywhere.
Okay.
This particular request is for the culvert repair on Gould Street. One of many culverts that was identified as being a top priority. This is in the area of Smith Ave. It's a relatively small request. The intent here is to attempt to do this work in-house with our own forces. Combination of highway and water and engineering. So again, relatively small. It's basically a drain pipe or two drain pipes that we'll put in at the intersection of Gould and Smith. This request is for the replacement of damaged guardrail along Route 27 and a couple of other areas. Drew can give you the particulars on that if you have any specific questions, but this is basic steel guardrail that was damaged over the course of years that we've not had the funding to repair. Have been unable to identify who damaged them through vehicle accidents and trees. We've not submitted that I'm aware of any insurance claims. So this would be to repair those very small sections of guardrail. And again, if you have any particular questions, Drew can give you the particulars.
We're all set.
Hot fiber crack sealing. This is an annual program. This is the roadway preservation program that we use in that we hire a company to basically seal the cracks. It's a hot fiber crack seal. The actual compound is a mix of asphalt and polyester fibers. The polyester fibers are better than just the straight up asphalt. In that it's more forgiving when traffic hits it, and it doesn't harden, and it doesn't decay as fast. Crack sealing, it's a very good program. It prevents water from getting into the cracks and eventually going underneath the surface and creating potholes and other road deficiencies. So it's a very worthwhile preventative maintenance program. Actually, we just completed it, Drew, on Audubon in that neighborhood there.
Yeah, Audubon, we did the entire neighborhood of Audubon Drive area, Beethoven, we did about 70% of Beethoven, and we did some other streets, Plimpton. We even did a little up Jarvis Farm for recreation on a couple of the courts.
Solar powered message board is pretty self-explanatory. Uh, as each day goes by, we have a growing need for these. We currently only, I believe we have one message board that the water department bought under a grant many, many years ago. We pirate the police department ones when we can, but they use theirs continuously in the center. With all the road construction, particularly on 1A right now, and other construction projects, our own paving projects, this is another worthwhile investment. Public notification is key in a lot of these things. Saves Carl's office and the DPW administration offices a lot of calls because of lack of notification during construction projects. Request is for 19,000 as a solar powered message board. This request is for a 2,500 gallon tank that will be used to store a salt brine solution. We are going to initiate a new snow and ice control method, which is pre-treatment with a brine system. Again, brine system is a concentrated salt water system where the spray is applied to the roadways in advance of the storm. This, depending on the weather conditions, this can be applied 2 days in advance. Currently, we use a conventional pre-treatment method of rock salt and magnesium chloride. In some circumstances, it's not really effective. This will be a far more effective method of pre-treatment. This is an anti-icing agent as opposed to a de-icing agent. Road salt is typically a de-icing agent. This is anti-icing. You're trying to prevent it prevent the buildup. Anybody that's driven along an ice compacted road, it's like driving over a series of speed bumps. This is geared toward attempting to prevent that.
Is this approach more environmentally friendly than the prior approach?
It would be in that we would hopefully use less road salt.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sorry, just could you state again what the liquid de-icer was made out of? What was the chemical solution? Or
It's a mix of, it's a brine solution. It's made out of salt, concentrated salt, and water.
Oh, thanks.
And Rick, I'm going to jump in on the LED streetlight conversion. So as part of your packets earlier today, I included a narrative on a request for $800,000. This would this would allow us to convert the town's roughly 1,900 streetlights that are currently owned by Eversource to LED. So in addition to it being obviously the town using less energy, we would see some savings down the line. So as you may know, earlier this year, the town of Walpole achieved green community status with the Department of Energy Resources. As part of this, we were awarded $166,000 as part of a grant. So with that money, we're going to take that grant award. Actually, we just got notice today that the grant was accepted for this purpose. We're going to contribute that toward the 800,000, in addition to the 800,000 for the purpose of LED streetlight replacement. And just to kind of walk you through what that process is like during this interim period until we can sign a contract. We're in the process of working with the MAPC and soliciting qualifications from engineering and audit firms. They're going to come do a complete audit of all the streetlights in the town of Walpole. And then subject to appropriation, we would then work on engineering the exact type of streetlight program we want. And the way that it's been explained to me, there's even programs you can have on your cell phone, and you have certain neighborhoods of town be programmed to dim to a certain level at certain times. Or let's say, for instance, in the downtown, if we choose to, depending on the program we choose for the downtown area, let's say it's midnight, it's last call, folks are leaving some of the restaurants, we can actually have those lights dim up for the 1 hour between midnight and 1 o'clock, so folks are getting home safely. So it's actually a pretty neat program. It's completely changed from the way that streetlights are being offered now. So subject to appropriation, we would work with EverSource to purchase the streetlights and the poles, and this would take about 3 months. This complete conversion, the cost would also go towards the installation of the lights. So when the early estimates we've received from the MAPC, they estimate a net savings of about $100,000 in operational costs. That includes the maintenance costs the town would need to absorb for the light bulbs themselves, the poles, things of that nature. So again, we're looking for $800,000 for this project. It's been pretty fascinating to learn about this. We've been working with Highway Superintendent Drew Hand and Energy Manager David Ruggiero, who started actually on July 1st. He's been hitting the ground running. This is a position that we're sharing with the town of Norwood and the town of Sharon. We pooled our resources this fiscal year, for an energy manager, and his role has been to pretty much go through all the accounts of the town of Walpole, try to identify efficiencies that may exist, identify grants that might be out there. So he and I have been meeting about every 2 weeks or so, and he was the one that wrote the grant application for the $166,000 for this reason. So I know it's a lot of information. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer any.
And so, Patrick, I was always under the understanding that the town paid a yearly fee for every one of the streetlights that we have. They're not needed, so wasn't there like a yearly fee that we had to pay for that?
I don't think it's a flat fee. No, Drew's on here. Drew manages that budget. I'm certain that I think they measured the energy that's used for each of the streetlights, and there's a rate that we pay for those. Drew, is that right?
It's $25,000 a month.
Okay.
It is per light. What they do is I think they calculate the electricity. As Drew said, it's roughly 25 to 26,000 bucks a month. And they take the number of streetlights and they calculate a rate and they charge you accordingly. Ours, as Drew just said, is like 25,000 a month. And Drew can also attest to the fact of how many telephone calls he receives for streetlights that are out, and how quickly EverSource responds to repairing those streetlights that are out. And
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, but this is a relatively fast payback period too, I believe, isn't it?
Yeah, a couple of years, but the MAPC estimated about 3 or 4 years the turnaround time that this is paid off. And like I said, we're saving energy, saving money. It's something that I think we've been wanting to do for a long time. We were just looking for the opportunity to do it, and then with the board directing the priority for the green community status, it seemed like this is the perfect time to do it.
So should our monthly fee go down? It should be reduced, right, if we're using less electricity?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Ed.
Do we know how much or what the percentage might be?
I think all those cost estimates will come from that audit that we're planning on doing. Right now, we just got an initial cost estimate, initial breakdown from MAPC, but it wasn't super comprehensive.
But as of right now, do we actually own the streetlights, or does EverSource?
EverSource does.
But we'll be taking ownership with it once we change the bulbs?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a process. We got an initial cost estimate on the actual acquisition of the streetlights themselves. I think was about 206,000 earlier this year. And then obviously you got to pay for installation, things like that. But when we reached out to Eversource at the time, they said, we can give you an estimate today. And you know how it is with these utilities, that those numbers are always changing. So they gave us kind of a working number to work with. And once, you know, if town meeting agrees with this amount of money and we get the appropriation at town meeting, we can go back to them with, you know, obviously with money on hand and work out those final arrangements with Eversource.
I can see us saving energy, but it's gonna cost us a lot more in the long run. I mean, the payback period for this, I can't run the numbers right now, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me right now.
So it's 4 years for the payback period is what they're estimating.
With that reduced monthly fee, and after we buy everything, that's what it would be, about 4 years, you said?
Yeah, Drew, do you know the budget off the top of your head? Is it about 250,000 for the year? Does that sound about right? Oh, sorry, Drew, you're on mute.
Budget is 330,000, I think.
Okay, so I think that the estimate that the MAPC had given us was somewhere around $150,000. So we're almost cutting the cost in half, Ed.
Okay. And are we gonna have to do the repairs in-house though?
I don't know if the highway department will be doing the repairs themselves, or if it's something, you know, maintenance we would sub out. As part of the MAPC's cost estimate, they estimated spending about $25,000 in annual maintenance, and that's already baked into that $100,000 savings. It's a net savings.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the streetlights?
All right, if not, I think that's just about it for the highway department.
Actually, Patrick, excuse me, I wanted to go back because it was a little confusing on the allocations here, like the roadways and the surfaces. The request was for 1.5 million, and administration is only offering suggesting or requesting recommending the $1,050,000. So, but that would be like those three articles put together, right?
Yes.
Yes, that's roadways, sidewalks, and lots.
Right. So, and that would add up to the 1.5, correct? So,
Correct.
1.0, right, the town administrator's recommendation is $1,050,000.
okay. Like, it was just a little confusing because it didn't match up. Numbers didn't match up. Also, were we gonna talk about the chapter 92? That wasn't mentioned, was it?
No, I'll jump to that now. It's on, let me just go to that. It's page 86.
My first question on that, Patrick, doesn't that have to be a separate article? Or do we allot the free cash and then use the money? It's not borrowing, but that can be in that same article with the free cash?
Yeah, so that we've typically put that in the street and drainage improvements. So if you notice under the Article 8 on the capital summary, I can pull it up actually.
I just thought the chapter 90 money, that article always was by itself.
The previous few years that we've been doing it, we've been including it with the street and drainage improvements. We always stick it with free cash and we separate out the borrowing articles.
Okay.
All right, so actually, do you want me I'll jump back to that chapter 90 letter. Rick, if you don't mind giving just an overview on the chapter 90 streets program.
Yeah, Chapter 90 Streets Program is a reimbursement program for the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. Each city and town in Massachusetts is allotted a certain percentage of the funding that they have available based on the mile of roads in each community. This is something that's been going on for many, many, many years. I was kind of hoping that we'd see an increase, but we're starting to see slight decreases actually. they're always within like $5,000 of each year. And again, it's simply, I guess it's basically a grant program. Whereas we go and spend the money, we put in project requests, do the work, and then submit for reimbursement. And the reimbursements come relatively quickly. So it's a very good program. Chapter 90 money you can use for roads, sidewalks. Actually, some towns use it for equipment. I certainly wouldn't want to go there, but you have a lot of options available to you for the money.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Okay, next on the agenda. We have parks and cemeteries.
Yes, Parks and Cemetery. You see before you 4 requests from the Parks Department. The most expensive by far of which is the replacement of the Carolyn Woodward playgrounds. Formerly known as the Memorial Playground, is dedicated to Ms. Woodward in June of 1993, I believe. I'm starting with this one only because it's the most expensive. And I'm kind of hoping to lull you to sleep and you'll vote the other ones with, only kidding. But this program this playground has gone through a series of minor upgrades and minor rehabilitations over the past several years. I believe the most recent one was in 2017 when they did something with the shade structure and the slide. A lot of the work over at that site has been done by volunteers through donations that were provided by one of the ones that comes to mind is the Junior Women's Club and a few others in town. This is for a total replacement and extension of the footprint over there. So you're basically making the playground larger. The equipment that's proposed in this here is a more all-inclusive type playground where it'll capture a wide variety of age groups. Justin can speak more to that as to exactly what structure is going to be over there. But it's slides, swings. There's a lot of emphasis on climbing, motor sensory type devices. I'm certainly not a playground expert, and like I said, Justin, he can answer any questions that you have. But the request is for $332,000, and any questions, I'll defer to Justin. Hopping back to number 1, that's a standing $75,000 request. This is more or less like a depreciation fund, where the money is set aside for the eventual replacement of the synthetic turf fields at both the Turco complex at the high school and now the new fields complex and so forth. So that's a standing request annually. That used to be $50,000 because of the addition of the 2 new turf fields at the South Walpole site. We've bumped that to $75,000.
And Rick, if you note, the town administrator is recommending $100,000 for that.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I'll have to talk to him tomorrow about that. Yeah, he's the second request that Justin and the Parks Department put in is for an enclosed landscape trailer. This will allow for the Parks Department to basically keep their equipment in the trailer and not have to offload it and onload it in the morning at the beginning and end of each and every shift. Depending on what Justin has them scheduled to do the following day, if they do need to unload and onload, they can do that at the end of the day and save time. In the morning, they can get right out and not have to jockey around and loading things on certain trailers to go to certain places. So this would be it's a relatively inexpensive request at $14,000. And in my opinion, it's a very, very good thing that, for us to get. The deck over trailer, that would be used to transport the larger mowers, the larger sit-down mowers as opposed to the smaller ones. One of the mowers that we just bought is very large. And it was the one that was, I believe, Justin, the one that we most recently bought was, I don't know how wide it is, but it's a big machine. And this trailer would be used for that particular purpose. If you have any particular questions, Justin can answer them.
Makes sense to me. Any questions? All set? What is deck over trailer? What was that?
Justin, the deck over trailer, that's a flat trailer that tips.
Correct. So what this trailer allows us to do is that with the new fields, we purchased a larger mower that comes in at about a width of 96 inches, which is higher than the normal standard on most trailers. My thought process with this is to be able to not only utilize that mower just on Route 1A, but also on our other fields, which in turn would create more production, which obviously with more production allows for more time to be able to go out and do other things. So for my two equipment purchases on these, both for the enclosed trailer and the deck over trailer, my thought process is really just to start improving the efficiency of the department. So that way we can take on more projects in-house, being able to beautify the town better.
Okay, thank you. And that would be it. Right?
Yes. Cemetery Department has two requests. Again, enclosed landscape trailer, a little bit larger than the one that the Parks Department is requesting for the same reasons. It's to store the equipment overnight in an enclosed trailer and not have to on and offload it. The second request is for $12,000 for the stand-up blower. Currently, the town maintains six cemeteries, 3 of which are active, 3 of which are historical. Leaves fall on all 6 of them. So whether they're historical or active cemeteries, they still need to be cleaned up. This stand-up blower will allow the 2 cemetery employees to clean those leaves in a much more efficient manner. The Park Department does currently have a stand-on blower, but this would eliminate that competition between the need for the use of the machine. They could each use their own machine simultaneously.
Okay, any questions? Good.
I have a question. On the cover page for cemetery, it has enclosed landscape trailer, $16,000. On the priority page, it has it listed for $14,000.
I believe the request is for 16,000.
Yeah, it was 16.
Yeah, that's what's on the capital budget recommendation sheet.
No, actually, the Public Works enclosed trailer was 14, and then the enclosed trailer for the cemetery right underneath it is 16. Yeah.
Correct. But if you look in the book, under the Public Works
right.
cemetery, do you see where it says 16? And then you go to priority number 1 and it says 14.
Right.
So I'm rationalizing it's supposed to be 16 and there was just an error with putting the 14 in. Right or wrong?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, and recommendation of the town administrator was a 16,000 anyway.
Correct.
Okay,
But the book was different.
so we can just change that on that,
It's
priority
correct on the sheet, but
Yeah.
in the book, it was different.
list. Yeah. Okay, no, thank you.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question about the synthetic turf replacement? Just before we get, I know we just moved on, but I see could someone just explain a little bit more about how often that needs to be replaced? Because it says they need to replace every 10 to 12 years, but then I see on the 5-year plan, it's like every year. So is that just like a section of the whole thing, or how does that work?
Yeah, so this is something that the town has programmed actually for the last few years. I want to say it started around 2013 to 2014, and essentially because of the cost of the synthetic turf fields is so great, we set aside money each year that sits in an account that we kind of build up, and that actually worked out great. 2 summers ago, we ended up replacing the synthetic turf field at the high school, and we had a few years of these $50,000 appropriations that had been saved up, in addition to some of the field maintenance money that the rec department collects from field permits. So in addition to that, there were monies that were appropriated for that project. So it's essentially we program in these expenses every year, so that way when the costly investment of replacing them comes up, it's not one huge expenditure all at once. So within the last year, we've actually tripled the amount of synthetic turf fields that the town has in its inventory. We had the one at the high school. Now there's 2 synthetic turf fields at the new Route 1A complex down in South Walpole. So I think last year the appropriation was for 75,000. The year before that was 50,000. So I think by Jim increasing that amount, I think it brings it more in line with what we can expect over the course of the life of these synthetic turf fields. So, and it all depends too. It depends on how well the fields are groomed, how well they're maintained. We got a lot more life out of the high school field than I think what the initial shelf life had projected it. So it all depends on how they're maintained, how much they're worn in. So it is kind of we get them inspected and we make those calls, and of course we don't want to jeopardize player safety. So it's it's a discussion that we have about when the right time is to replace those fields.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, Ed, you want to move on?
Yep. Yep.
All right, so what do we vehicle maintenance?
So the request that you have before you tonight from the Vehicle Maintenance Department is for the replacement of vehicles and or pieces of equipment that are used by various departments in town. You'll see the top one and the most expensive one is the replacement of a 2006 Sterling dump and sander unit. We propose to replace this truck with a 10-wheel chassis truck that has a hook-in hydraulic system. And what this vehicle will do, what this piece of equipment will allow us to do is to use it for it's a multi-function piece of equipment. So it comes with the truck and chassis naturally, but it'll come with a sander unit, a flatbed unit, a dump body, and we spoke earlier of the brine tank on the Drew's request. This will come with a tank and pump system to apply that brine to the streets. It's a very expensive piece of equipment, but it's I think the key here is that it's a multifunctional unit. So if after we're done plowing and we're done sanding the streets, we decide to pick up snow in the center of town, we can simply remove the sander body, put the dump body onto the truck and use it for snow removal, or vice versa. If it's currently in dump mode and it needs to go to sander mode, with the hook and hydraulic system, you can change it out in a relatively short period of time. So you're basically getting 3 functional trucks under one chassis. The next request is for the replacement, the next 2 requests for the replacement of 2007 Ford Rangers. These trucks have outlived their useful lives. The frames on both of them are starting to rot to the point where they will soon become safety hazards and probably will not pass state inspection. One of them does have relatively low mileage on it, but there again, the frame is starting to rot. 715 is the director's car. Well, backing up to the Ford Rangers, those will be replaced in kind with 4-cylinder Ford Rangers. 4-wheel drive.
What are they with, Rick, with the department?
They're multi-use. They're listed as municipal use vehicles. Right now, one of them is currently used by the building commissioner's office for inspectional purposes, and the other is used primarily by recreation. However, these vehicles are available to any department that needs them. So they're not really assigned to any one particular department. And again, those requests are $28,000 each. Those will be replaced with 4-cylinder Ford Rangers. The next request is the replacement of car 715, which is a 2000 Ford Fusion. It's got roughly 97,000 miles on it, and it too is starting to rot heavily. This current car is a 4-cylinder. It's a 2-wheel drive, front-wheel drive vehicle, proposed to replace with a Ford Explorer for $35,000, 6-cylinder Ford Explorer all-wheel drive. The next request is for car 701. That's a 2008 Ford Explorer. We propose to replace this with a 6-cylinder F-150 pickup truck.
I got just, maybe this is a silly question, but why are they all Ford? Is that just like the one thing that we can buy, or is it, I don't know, do we look at other brands, or is that just like some sort of municipal catalog that you have?
They're typically purchased on the off a state bid list through one particular company that's on that state bid list that we use. They do, for ease of stocking of parts. Tom, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's easier for us to stock parts and get parts for one particular manufacturer than to have Chevrolet, a GMC, a Dodge, and Fords, and it's just a lot of the filters are interchangeable, and it's just easy to standardize. And again, they're all off of the state bid.
Okay, on that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That pretty much covers it, because anytime you're buying tires, brake parts, if you buy them for one Ford Ranger, and now we have 4 of them, you go to the shelf, you pick up what you need, and you replace it when you can. So it just keeps it consistently the same. Even a tire size, if you stock 8 tires, you can just replace them when you need to.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Are there any electric vehicles that we can look at, just in line with the whole green communities and energy saving priorities of the select board and the town meeting? Do they have electric vehicles that we can purchase?
Not that would fit the criteria for what we need for these.
Yeah, and Justin, I'll jump in there too. So as part of the green communities designation was an emission standard that the vehicles need to meet going forward. So for some of these, for instance, they don't have, Ford. I know Ford recently, I think within the past year or so, announced a new pickup truck. So I know that they're just starting to roll out their electric line. I think it's called the Ford Lightning or whatever it's called. So as part of green communities, there are certain goals that and objectives we need to hit when purchasing new vehicles, and we'll keep those standards in mind. But as far as electric vehicles for this upcoming calendar year, they're not there for what, you know, for the purposes that we need them for. All right, any questions, any other questions about vehicle maintenance?
Yeah, one, couple, what was the Ford F-150 pickup truck? Who did that? What department was that for?
Administration.
Okay, and, the 10-wheeler, is that replacing another 10-wheeler or a 6-wheeler?
It's replacing a 6-wheeler. We have another 10-wheel truck that's coming up fast on the replacement list. Depending on our experience with this particular one, we may replace that next 10-wheeler with a 6-wheeler. We'll assess our needs and the, you know, how effective this one is for us in terms of chassis size.
Great, thank you.
I just had one question. Is this pricing net of trade-in? Are you getting anything back on a trade-in for any of these vehicles, or is this just the new price and, you know, potentially you can collect money on trade-ins later?
Tom, maybe you can answer that. I'm not sure if they include trade, Scott.
Yeah, we will trade them in, but they're not going to bring a lot of money, pretty much because of body rot and frame rot. Nobody's going to be really looking at these vehicles. The number 206, the Sterling, that was discontinued back in 2009. So there's not a lot of parts available for that truck. So I don't think they're going to bring a lot of money in. And the Ford Rangers are pretty much, I wouldn't, maybe $2,500, I'm guessing, per trade.
So Scott, we have another option available too, as opposed to just a straight up trade. We work with the municipal, whereas they can put it on an auction and we can solicit bids instead of accepting just a straight up trade. So that's another option we have with our surplus equipment.
Okay, but I mean, bottom line, we might be able to recoup a little bit of money, even if it's just a few $1,000s on. I mean, you can basically trade in a junker for $500 to $1,000. They'll just come tow it away and, you know, scrap the metal and, you know, get the part. So I'm sure you can make a little bit of money. So that's.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, next up.
All right, so it looks like water department's up.
So the water department's capital request for this year. We'll go right down the row, right down the list. The number one priority is the phase 2 Scada upgrade for the H.E. Willis and Delaney water treatment plants. Scada system is a supervisory control and data acquisition system, whereas the plants, the 2 treatment plants and the wells, as well as the water storage tanks, can be monitored and operated remotely by those that are authorized to do so. The current equipment is outdated, and while it's still functional, as was the case with the Sterling dump truck that Tommy just talked about, it's very outdated and it's becoming very, very difficult to get repair parts for the existing systems. The phase 1 Scada upgrade was just completed as recently as a month ago. That is working well. This is the second phase of probably 3 phases. I'm thinking that they will be back probably next year. Once we assess where we're at with upon completion of the second phase, we'll know exactly what we need. That's why you'll see that it's cost to be determined next year. The second request is for $2.8 million. This is to replace roughly 13,500 linear feet of 6-inch unlined cast iron water mains. Some of you may recall that this is a program that was instituted probably 5 or 6 years ago, and it's an ongoing thing. The town infrastructure is growing old. A lot of these pipes that are proposed under this particular project were put in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. If anybody's ever seen the inside of an unlined cast iron water main with the tuberculation that's built up over the course of the years, you probably wouldn't drink the water. So, I know some of you have seen that. Meter system components, the town currently has a metering system that was initiated and started to be installed in 2001. It's now 20 years old. It's starting to lose a lot of its functionality. It's becoming more and more difficult to maintain it. This request for $250,000 the intent right now is to continue to use this existing system. However, the Sewer and Water Commission has indicated that they may want to migrate away from the current system and go to a newer, more modern system. As anybody knows, even with cell phone technology, it changes daily. These types of systems are very similar in that they change constantly. So that $250,000, that'll allow us to either maintain what we have right now, or once the commission decides what they want to do, migrate into another system. Request number 4 is just a redundant compressor at the H.E. Willis Water Treatment Plant. Currently, we have one compressor up there that operates the vast majority of the valves. If it goes down, we'll have a little bit of a problem. So this is just a backup compressor. Relatively short money, $15,000. Vehicle replacement, that's for the superintendent's car. That's a 2010, I believe, Ford Fusion that is severely rotted. And Tommy can attest to the fact that it probably will not pass inspection next time around. That's proposed to be replaced with a 4-cylinder Ford Escape, all-wheel drive. The water main replacement will be borrowing. The remainder of the requested improvements will be from water retained earnings.
Rick, do you know offhand what the balance is in your account?
Scotty, do you know exactly? I think it's somewhere around $2.8 million. Scott, do you have the exact number?
Yeah, it's $2,785,967 in water.
So roughly 2.8.
Thank you.
All right, any other water-related questions? If not, I can jump to sewer.
Sorry again if this is like a really dumb question, but I know that there's, again, with the infrastructure bill coming, that there's money in there for replacing like a lot of anything that has lead in it. I think there's like big grants for that. Does any of that apply to us, or like, is it worth it all, again, postponing stuff with the hope that maybe we get some of this infrastructure bill money?
So I think I mentioned yesterday, we were talking about the ARPA money. One of the major prongs of the ARPA funding is sewer and water related projects. So we're in the process of studying the exact permissible uses. Again, we had a meeting with the county on Monday, and the National League of Cities is doing another webinar, I think next week. So everyone's still digesting exactly what the permissible uses of that funding's for. It is something that we're able to use through 2023 with obligations, I think, until 2025 or 2026. So we're in the process of looking through that, and I think that sewer and water related projects are going to be a pretty good candidate for at least some of that ARPA money.
So in terms of shovel ready, Justin, this particular project, this $2.8 million proposed water main replacement improvement, is currently under design. So it'll be probably the most shovel ready project that the Public Works Department has in the event that the opportunity presents itself.
Okay, yeah, and then so if we allocate this money and then we get the grant, then we, we obviously don't have to spend that full 2.8 or however that works. Okay, great.
I'm gonna jump to the sewer department now. Here we go.
So there are 4 proposed improvements under the sewer department. The first one is the replacement of the sludge handling system at the Delaney water treatment plant. Some of you may recall that we had a previous appropriation for that. I believe it was $440,000. Scott, maybe you have a better number on that. In any event. Go ahead,
If
Scott.
you want that number, it was 481,000. The
Okay.
last one.
So when we opened the bids for this project, the design engineer did not anticipate the escalation in costs. And the design, in fairness to them, the town requested a little bit of design change. It drove the cost up significantly. This project is now estimated, I believe, Scott, at 980,000 or somewhere thereabouts. So what the intent would be here is to take this $550,000 appropriation and put it together with the previous appropriation and get the project done. Again, this is the sludge handling system. This is all the backwash residuals from the filters that go into basins and are ultimately pumped to the sewer system. The second request is sewer expansion. We've labeled it 1.0. This is for 2 areas of Main Street that were identified under the sewer master plan that Weston and Sampson performed in 2018 or 19. The reason why we've chosen to move forward at this particular time with these 2 particular improvements, these 2 segments of pipe, is because, as you're all aware, Route 1A is currently under construction. These 2 segments of pipe lie within that section of Route 1A that is currently under construction. Ultimately, the town is going to take ownership of that roadway. And once the road is resurfaced and reconstructed, it makes absolutely positively no sense to go back out there and tear it up again and put a sewer line in. So this is a proactive approach to that. That request is for 1.525.5, and that's for 2 segments of pipe along Main Street, one of which is between Kendall and the bridge at Neponset View, and the other is in the Bullitt Street area to the Norwood line. And then Scott can give you details as to how many homes it would service.
That would be 21 homes. It'd be 10 on the Kennel side and 11 on the Bullitt Street side.
And those homes currently don't have town sewer, or they do?
They do not.
Those 21 homes do not. There are
So
some in the area that have sewer, but not everyone does. These 21 do not.
So what's the, if you do this, and someone has a private septic system, what's it cost them to tie into the, to the town system or the MWRA system? And are they obligated in any way to do that, or can they just keep their, their
They would not be obligated, Scott. The only time they would be obligated, I believe, under Title V, which is administered by the Board of Health, would be if they have a failed system and sewer is available, then I believe they are obligated to connect. Other than that, there is no obligation. And in terms of what it costs them, currently the connection fee is $2,300. The commission needs to make a decision as to whether or not they want to attempt to assess betterments to these particular properties. That's something that's going to require a lot of thought, only because first and foremost, it's a relatively expensive project with a limited amount of properties to be bettered. So the betterment assessments would probably be in excess of $100,000. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody's going to pay that. So, but nonetheless, the commission made the decision to move forward with it. I don't think that they will assess betterments. They may establish a special connection fee, but it certainly would not be anywhere close or rival the betterment cost.
Okay, thanks, Rick.
Yeah, so do I have this right that it's going to cost 1.5 million to just service 21 homes? Is the purpose of this just to service those homes, or is this like, what's the larger, that's like $72,000 per home? I don't know, it just doesn't seem like a good cost benefit or return on investment, but maybe I'm not seeing the larger picture.
On the Bullitt Street end, Justin, the larger picture would be, it would give us the opportunity to sewer Bullitt Street itself, because the pipe would be that much closer to that intersection. In terms of the other section between Kendall and the Neponset, there is really no additional benefit to that, other than the 10 homes that Scott outlined as being able to connect.
And sorry, thanks for that, Rick. But could you just explain that first part that you mentioned again? So the benefit would be, or what's the benefit of hooking into that other, or serving that other street? That would be another line would come off of that? Is that how that would work?
Correct. This connection from 4 Bullitt Street would connect to this pipe, the pipe that we propose to put in. Again, it was identified in the master plan. It was a relatively low priority. It was reprioritized only because of the construction on Main Street. The next request is for, again, for meter system components. This is for the exact same type of work that would be done under the water side. This is in the sewer budget because sewer bills are generated on water consumption, which are ultimately accounted for through water metering. So this request is for $100,000. That would be paired with the $250,000 on the water side, and the improvements would move forward for a total of $350,000 if we get the appropriation. The next one is for the rehabilitation of the Morningside Drive sewer pump station. Scotty, we have how many pump stations?
Well, right now, there's 8 sewer pump stations in service.
And this I believe is the 6th of those 8 that would be rehabilitated. 2 of, Scott, you have the breakdown. 2, I believe, have been rehabilitated, and 4 others or 3 others
right.
are laying in the queue waiting for equipment.
Yeah, that's correct. There's 2 that are seeing completion. There are 3 others that are under contract. Morningside Drive was proposed, and High Oaks and Ganawati will be future projects.
Any questions? No, that's not.
All right, Ed, if I'm not mistaken, I think that pretty much wraps up the extent of the Department of Public Works requests. Any questions about any of the specific divisions before we adjourn for the night? I know there's kind of a lot to digest.
It
looks
is.
like Justin's got a question.
What is the balance for the sewer?
Scotty?
Sewer is certified at $1,955,944.
Thank you.
Do we still have DPW here? Which was wondering which one of those vehicles was, they said one of them was had a really low mileage. Was that the truck or the Ranger, or do we have that
think it was-
information?
What, 735, Rick or Tommy? Does that sound right? Or 738 maybe?
It's the 735. It's the one the Recreation Department uses, the Ford Ranger.
Thank you.
Any other questions for any of the divisions?
Well, you said that all those vehicles, all the new vehicles, all 5 of them, all the departments can use them, or are they set aside, like you were just mentioning, like the Parks and Rec have this one, and or are they communal use?
The 2 Ford Rangers, truck 735 and 738 are communal use. Those for use by all municipal departments. Right now, as I said, they're primarily used by the building inspector's office and the recreation department. But if another department needs to use the truck, then that's what they're there for.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Justin, on election mornings, running around town with the town clerk, I've been known to grab one of those trucks if we got to throw some of the equipment into the back of it, just because it's got the bed. I've been known to grab a couple of these Rangers in the Rec Explorer again from time to time when I'm on, if I'm around town helping out with, if there's a storm going on, I'll grab one of those vehicles myself. So they are, pretty communal use. I think for the most part, the rec department uses 738, and then the pool kids use 735 in between inspections that the inspection building inspection is doing. So yeah, everybody seems to use those vehicles.
Thank you.
Yep.
So if anybody, after you guys review these, you have any specific questions on any of the specific requests, please feel free to reach out to any one of the department heads or myself or Patrick, and we'll get you all the information, answer your questions as best we can.
Thank you for your time, Rick.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you. Good job, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, Ed, is there any more discussion, or are you all set to adjourn, or?
I think I'm good. Anybody else have anything you want to bring up?
I'm good.
All right, so I would just mention that our next meeting is next Tuesday night, same time, 6 p.m. via Zoom. We're going to be meeting with the 2 chiefs, Chief Kelleher, Chief Bailey, to review the public safety requests. And like Rick said, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to him, me, Carl, or any of the superintendents. We're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Is the expectation that we take votes next week, or is there another meeting?
Yeah, the expectation would be to take votes on Thursday, at Thursday night's meeting.
Wednesday.
Oh, excuse me. Yep.
Wednesday.
Thanks, Ed. Sorry, we don't typically have meetings on Wednesday night, so it's throwing me off the schedule for Wednesday. So Wednesday night, we're going to be reviewing the school department requests and building maintenance. That's the other division of DPW that we didn't see tonight. And like I mentioned yesterday, actually, I don't know if you were on, Noreen.
Yeah.
Building maintenance, a lot of their requests deal with schools, so it makes sense to pair them up. But we'll meet with them Wednesday night, and the expectation would be to vote Wednesday night.
Okay, got it.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to DPW, and we'll see you all Tuesday night.
Thank you.
Thank
Good night,
you.
all.
Good night.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Yep, good night.